Welcome back to the show. It's your boy Ben Humble here on the Data and Drama Show. Good to have you folks here. Welcome back. Today is Easter Monday. So for those of you celebrating, taking the holiday off, awesome. Take some time, spend with your family. Hey, we got a cool episode for you guys today. We're talking about a lot of different things. Primarily, are we going virtual? It's time to go virtual. It's time to change it up. Time to virtualize your life. I need to make that word up real quick, virtualize. And hey, a lot of different things going on. So we're going to be talking about virtual life, your virtual business, your virtual, everything, maybe even virtual dating. I don't know. That might be on the topic today. I don't know. Hans, didn't you meet your wife on a virtual dating site? In fact, isn't your wife just virtual?
Yeah, she doesn't exist.
Okay, there you go. Boom. All right, so before we get started here today, do me a quick solid. Share the stream if you can. Do me a solid. I don't make any money doing the show. We put it together because we love it, we enjoy it, we have fun with it, and we hope to give you some value. So if you're getting value today, share the stream and tag a buddy who's an investor. Tag somebody, a guy or gal who's an investor. And if it's your first time joining us, welcome to the show. It's your boy here. Grab a free copy if you'd like. Enjoy the book I just put out a little while ago. It's called Real Estate Secrets Exposed, Canadian Guide to Real Estate Wholesaling. So if you guys are interested in wholesaling, you want to learn what took me a long time to put together, spent a lot of money putting this together, and this wholesaling strategy or theory kind of runs our whole business. We're finding off-market deals. We've been doing this for years now. And now it's more important than ever to understand the power of wholesaling and finding off-market deals. So head over to humble.co, grab your free copy. And we got some folks up in the house. What's going on? We got Cam here. We got Hungarian in the house. Good to see you folks here. We got some people waiting, and nice to have everybody here for the live stream. Today I got my good buddy with me. You know him. He's the dude. He's the one making it happen. He's the one that a lot of people look to for inspiration, motivation, and clarity in a time of confusion and even times of not confusion. You guys know him. I'm going to bring on my guest today is my boy, Mr. Matt McKeever. Matt, welcome to the show, my man. Let's pop him in here for a second.
Hey, how's it going, Ben?
Hey, man. Good to have you back on the show here. Welcome
Good to
back.
be back.
We are live right now. We got some folks in the house saying hello to my brother, Matt. Folks, if you have any questions for Matt today, feel free to jot them in the comments. We'll be here live with you guys. So we're going to wrap. We got some cool things we're talking about. Virtual, Matt. Dude, we're going virtual, aren't we?
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of stuff is headed, right? I know you've got some different stocks and things for us to talk about, but definitely we're going to see that switch, right? Both in businesses in their actual implementation in regards to their business model, as well as flipping it in just like the speculation of the market, anticipating a general move to a more virtual world.
So we're going to talk about that, how we do that, how we make that happen, where we go. So before we jump into that, let's hop over to the question or the joke of the day. Hans, hit the music for the joke of the day. Matt, this is a pretty dry joke. You may enjoy this. I don't know. And some people do like dry jokes. So what did the elephant say to the naked man? Any idea?
No. Oh, you forgot something with a trunk, I'm going to guess. But beyond that, I don't know.
Correct. He basically said, how do you breathe through that thing? Pretty good joke. I like it. Great joke, guy. All right, data drama here. So data drama, Matt. Not all companies are taking a loss during COVID-19. Amazon will be hiring 100,000 new employees during this time. Is that data or drama? What do you think? True or false?
I heard they're going on a huge hiring spree. I don't remember the number. So hopefully this is data, because that sounds very inspiring if it is.
Folks at home, what do you think it is? Do you think Amazon's about to hire 100,000 people? Yes or no? Let me know. Data or drama? All right, so that's actually data. Amazon is reportedly hiring 100,000 new workers in its fulfillment centers nationwide to keep up with the increasing demand of people ordering food and supplies online. The retailer has 110 fulfillment centers worldwide and $350 million investment. And employees can expect to earn additional $2 per hour over the base rate. That's pretty awesome, right?
That's huge. That's some good news during some uncertain times.
I love it. I love to see companies hiring and growing and pushing. Okay, next, Canadian household sentiment declines to its lowest on record. So financial confidence. Data or drama, folks? What do you think? Matt?
Again, I wouldn't be surprised if this was data, but I don't know for sure. But I'd love to hear what the audience thinks. Before I jump to the answer, some of the comments says that they will monopolize. Well, folks,
They already have. I'm pretty sure Amazon has monopolized prior to this event. I'm sure they may further that monopoly at this point. Let's call it what it is. But this is actually data. Unfortunately, plunging confidence. So a lot of Canadians fear that they might have to file bankruptcy over the next few months. Not exciting, but it's very realistic sentiment out into the market. And we want to talk about today how we can, yeah, that was actually data. That's right, Cam. So we want to talk about exactly what can people do to go virtual, you know, in this kind of time of uncertainty. We want to find some certainty and some clarity from business owners. Matt, you are a business owner. I'm also a business owner. So let's talk about, folks. I think you and I, because of the whole FIRE mindset and the frugality nature of the way we kind of do our real estate investing, frankly, we're positioned better than most businesses, small business owners, to weather the storms. So we can talk about that, what that means for investors, what that means for individuals, and what that means for companies as well. Like, what should you be doing in this time? And you being a CPA, former CPA, I'm sure have a lot of tips and tricks for folks to lean it out. So we're going to start with that. But real quick, before I do that, it's interesting enough, we had last week, we had an article come out in the National Post about small businesses getting a boosted 75% subsidy to help them through the coronavirus crash. And 4 hours ago, another article came out. Despite desperate for revenue, some small business say that 75% wage subsidy won't help them stay afloat. So as much as the government efforts to come in with a 75% subsidy, that means that 25%, fair to say, is probably all the profit in those companies, right? If they've got a small profit margin.
Yeah. Well,
so let's talk about it.
Yeah, for me, I think it comes down to the government had the right intentions with this program, but the headline was a lot bigger than maybe the actual program itself in helping small businesses. So certainly when we're looking at wage expense, that is a major category in a lot of businesses. But at the same time, most businesses, especially those that aren't virtual, are going to have a lot of other overhead expenses and costs associated, right? So like things like the physical rent or input costs, things of that nature. And then when we're looking at, businesses like restaurants, they're also going to have spoilage, right? If they can't actually turn over their inventory fast enough. So I think that headline of 75% wage subsidy was great. And the intentions were great with that program. But once we dug a little bit deeper in, that business has to show a 30% decline in its revenue in regards to qualify for the full 75% subsidy. And in addition, what happens to a company that was maybe fast growing? So not a company that was stagnant or stale that had, consistent revenues, but a company that was currently experiencing that hockey stick. All of a sudden, even if they're still doing better technically from a revenue standpoint, they may have not yet eclipsed their overall fixed or variable costs in order to get into a profit area. So I know a lot of younger business owners that are in the tech-oriented space with startups. And the struggle here is, a 30% decline might mean that they're literally losing money in regards to revenue. Because what if you weren't generating revenue yet, right? What if you were just in the startup stage and you hadn't been able to go to market or launch to market yet? So there's a lot of dynamic factors there that don't necessarily, fit into a headline when we're looking at the government subsidies. At the same time, I'm not criticizing. It's a very dynamic situation, and I wouldn't necessarily want to trade roles with a lot of politicians and policymakers because they have tough decisions ahead of them for sure.
It's a tough job that they're doing, right? Just to stay afloat with this stuff. And everybody's narrative is going to get criticized, in all fairness, by different persons and parties. I kind of see two types of companies that are maybe weathering these storms, and maybe you can shed some light on this, but I feel like very seasoned companies that have shed their skin in a way, and they've become extremely lean over time as a result of successful business practices and having enough revenue. Even big companies like Apple, who don't have debt on the balance sheet necessarily. So those companies, I feel, are in a position to be able to pivot wisely because they have access or excess cash. So if you have access to cash and capital, and liquidity is high, you can really pivot in this movement because the demand of certain products has certainly increased. And even though the delivery method of some of the products and services that we're accustomed to has changed, the demand really hasn't changed. The food demand is still there, especially now. Like, I think less and less folks are walking to a grocery store and trying to get the food, where I think a lot of folks are willing to go and get the takeout, get the pizza, get the delivery service. So it's that, are you able to pivot on the delivery method? So I think those kind of companies, the ones that are seasoned and have experienced perhaps turbulent times in the past and have
reposition themselves to remain lean. And then the small companies or the small businesses, which have always been lean. Certain companies, our business in real estate, other than the debt load that is applied to real estate directly, so the holdings of that real estate, the operational side of real estate investing firms, especially smaller ones, is not that high if you're strictly looking at real estate investing as a company. So, the operational, the overhead, and the marketing really isn't anything unbearable in these kind of markets. And for folks that are used to spending money on marketing, well, they've already got cash accessible to them. So I think the companies, for me, that really struggle seem to be the ones that haven't had a massive focus on sales and marketing, because those companies that are used to sales and marketing, especially the marketing firms, they're used to having cash available for marketing operations. So I think those are kind of the two that are winning. And then a lot of other companies are suffering because they're really running on tight margins. They haven't really essentially become the market leader. And I think that's probably the big word here is the market leaders in their areas, the folks who have really pushed hard, the companies that have grown, will probably remain the market leader, AKA Amazon. The companies who have not been a market leader or have been just fighting in a red pool of competition all this time, they're the ones that are suffering because there's really no unique reason or unique selling proposition behind those companies offering. So let's talk about this, man. Do you agree with this logic? Does it make sense? Or
Yeah, it definitely does to me. And I think the one big struggle is a lot of business owners haven't necessarily, especially if you've started your business in the last 10 years, you necessarily haven't weathered the sort of potential storm that we're entering into. So I'd also love to hear, Ben, what sort of strategies or techniques are you hearing from other business owners as far as how they're, either re-entrenching or growing their business, or exactly how they're approaching these liquidity crunches? Because it's certainly the frustrating thing I think that can be for some business owners is knowing that there's a way to navigate this, but they just need that liquidity in order to help bridge the gap. And I think that that's what we're seeing with a lot of the government's intentions with their programs. But the question becomes, how quickly can they roll them out?
Yeah. And so the people that I think are weathering the storm the best are people that I've had conversations about 2008 and 9/11 with. They're like the mastermind group that I'm in. Those guys are doing great because the truth is they've been in a position where they've been raising capital for a long time. Yeah. You see, there's kind of two trains of thoughts. You raise money when you need it, or you dig the well before you're thirsty. And the people that I know that do the best are always digging the well for capital. There's a cost of doing business. If you borrow $100,000 and you have to keep it in the bank at 10%, you're going to have to pay that $10,000 to keep that money available. I think a lot of investors and business owners aren't necessarily willing to make that trade-off where they're paying $10,000 without the confidence that the revenue is there. However, the people that have done that practice and have built their business on keeping money available in this kind of economic time, they're able to float. And I think that's the biggest problem. It's not that we can't drive revenue necessarily. It's that nobody's got liquidity. So now we're struggling to find money just to keep the business running, because most businesses can't last for 6 months, 12 months, a year. My company, frankly, we've been raising money for years. So the truth is, like, we could go for a year without revenue and still run the operation. So, but I think if you're not in that kind of positioning where you're always raising capital, you're only willing to, grow off of your revenue, you've been running into a marginal situation for the last several months or several years or since origination of your company. And as a result, now this kind of tipping point effect is happening where now when you really need money, it's not there. So there's a big rule in this. I think there's a lesson to be learned is that you always have to raise money all the time. And if there's a cost of doing business and it's going to cut into your bottom line, you need that liquidity in every business that I can think of. You need to maintain a high level of liquidity, because I believe liquidity shortage is what kills most businesses. Because you can keep kicking the can down the road if you've got surplus cash. If you don't have cash, then you're just going to come to a screaming halt the moment you can't pay the bills and keep the lights on.
Yeah, it's shocking how many problems cash can just solve.
All of them. Frankly, cash and revenue solves every problem, because that's what business is. Business is the nature of accumulating cash and using it wisely. So, I think there's two things that the smart business owners that I found are doing. Number one, they invest in themselves and learn how to manage cash. We're in a mastermind event this weekend, and one of our guys said, it's funny to me how many people invest in their business but don't invest in their ability to run that business, meaning that they don't know they need to raise cash. They don't know how to run the business. They've never invested in themselves to understand how the business should operate. They just invest in opening the business, right? They buy the materials, they rent the warehouse, and then all of a sudden they're in business, but they stop the investment typically there. Whereas I think smart business owners will keep investing in what they don't know. And a big part of that is liquidity management. So I think as real estate investors, we almost have it a little bit easier, in my opinion, because you have to be raising money to do real estate deals. It's kind of a part of your business activity, and if you're not raising money to do real estate deals as a real estate company, I would say that you're really not a real estate company because it's part of our activity, right? OPM. Whereas maybe a food product company, they're trying to run super lean and only invest the profits back into the company. So, but at the same token, if we treat it like a real business, folks, every real business requires capital, whether you raise it on the front end. And if you don't raise it on the front end, then you're going to have these turbulent times and then you have to weather those storms.
Yeah, I think that's really wise. And again, kind of looping back that concept to real estate and real estate investors, a lot of beginner or brand new investors always struggle to understand, why would I want a JV partner, or why would I want to use OPM and borrow other people's money? And that's because they really are playing too small and too close to the chest in regards to their plans and business model, because until we really start taking capital from the outside, we never have a true scalable business there. We're always going to be struggling and be limited to our own resources. And so I think now that we're going through what we're going through with COVID-19, this is a perfect highlight, like you said, Ben, why we should always be in the business of raising money, getting access to funds, and making sure that we're liquid.
Well, you just said a really interesting word, which is scalability. And I think that a business truly becomes a business of maturity the moment that there's a scalability factor. So if I'm running a pizza store and it's just me making the pizza and me selling the pizza, the truth is I don't have a scalable business, and I would argue you don't have a business, period. You have a high-paying job and you have a place that you've rented out. The moment that you start creating a process and procedure and hiring people and you open up a second location and a third location, you've created a scalability factor. The moment you have a scalability factor, the thing that you need to actually scale is typically capital. So if you generally want to own a real business, there has to be a scalability factor. And for you to actually achieve said scalability, you've got to be raising money. So if you don't raise money, with some minor exceptions, somebody's going to say to me, yeah, but Apple made $6 billion and used their own money for. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't, though. I would say the vast majority of companies, right, they carry debt and use liquidity to grow. So somebody said to me, well, is debt bad, right? The other day they said, hey, as an investor, I don't want to use my own money, or I want to use only my own money because borrowing money is bad. And borrowing money isn't good or bad. Is the operator capable and confident and able to make money out of money? Like, your ability as an investor should be, the primary focus is take $1 and turn it into $2. If you don't possess that skill, that discipline, and that ability, then you're not an investor. I would argue you're just a buyer. You're a buyer of real estate. You happen to own a couple properties, but investing to me requires certain skills and discipline, just like any other trade. That's like saying I'm a doctor, but I don't like to draw blood, or I can't do medical tests. Like, you have to. I don't want to raise money, or I don't want to use OPM. You're not in the investment business then, because that's the nature of investing, is to leverage and use a capital to create more capital, right? So what's your take 100%. On that? That's how I see investing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And at the same time, I understand that for a lot of people that are new to the game, it really is a struggle to internalize what you just broke out for us there, Ben, because I find so many people have the limiting belief that they don't want to use other people's money because the moment you start using other people's money, it's somehow more risky. And it really isn't. And what it is it's just a matter of best business practices, right? There's a reason why a lot of companies that don't necessarily have to go to the public market still do go to the public markets, because they understand the value in that liquidity and being able to always quickly turn, like when you're a publicly traded company versus a closely held company. A closely held company, it's a lot harder to inject liquidity over a short period of time, because you either need to borrow the money or you need to sell off privately. And at that point in time, there's just the market available for your shares is so much smaller than if you turn to the public markets. Same reason why a lot of massively scalable real estate investment companies in Canada turn to REIT structures, right? Because they want to be able to easily access that liquidity and scale up and scale down. And it's the reason why now I kind of have a rule with real estate investing that I try and never use Matt McKeever's money for real estate. I try and invest that into my active businesses or other things that I'm working on. But then with real estate, I try and only use other people's money, because there's always another deal. And what ends up happening as a real estate investor, it can be really easy to keep stretching our resources thinner and thinner. And then you're always on that razor's edge. You're always stressed. You're always if you're clever and hardworking enough, you can always solve that problem. But I think you create a lot more unnecessary stress and friction in your life by going through that process rather than just getting good at raising money, like you're saying, Ben.
Well, let me add to that piece because it's very important. I think that we need to distinguish, like, I see real estate investing as a business activity. So I'm in the business of real estate investing. I'm not a real estate investor. I think when you say I'm a real estate investor, you really personalize the business and you remove the actual business from the business. You've made it a personal hobby or endeavor, and it becomes something that you're doing on a personal level. So to me, if you're not willing or able to raise capital, it's only because there's a lack of confidence and you failed to prove the concept. Because any business that has proof of concept and has confidence in growth and scalability, you're going to go to Dragon's Den and raise money. That's just the natural tendency. You're going to go to the bank and get a loan and expand your operation. So I would say that if you're uncomfortable borrowing money, it's either because it's a hobby, it's not a real estate business, or number two, you're in a startup mode and you failed to deliver a proof of concept. So it's the two elements there for me, right? Because when you're still trying to figure things out and you're in R&D mode, then you might not want to go borrow money until you figure things out. So you live in a period of consolidation and a period of discovery. But the truth is, once you've discovered that the process works, then you having integrity as a business owner, if you want that business to grow and succeed, then you truly have to be willing to feed and nurture that business. And the way you feed it is through capital injection. And if you're not willing to do that, I would argue that, again, I don't think you have a business. I think you have a hobby. So I think if we make that clear distinction, then it starts to separate the anxiety, because we really internalize and we add a lot of emotion to this whole idea of real estate investing. The truth is, it's no different than a hot dog stand. If the hot people either buy their hot dog and there's a demand for your product and service, you've proven the concept. And if so, you should open up 15 hot dog stands and you should really start to scale and grow, because the whole intention of opening a business is to create a revenue. And if your intention is not to create revenue and create a profit, well, then I would say you're not in business.
100% agree.
Assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
So I want to give a very kind of tactical mindset to this piece, because it's easy to throw a bunch of words around, but I think it's important to identify, the personal nature of real estate investing, because we really individualize this business, where truthfully, if it's a true business, it wouldn't matter if it was real estate investing or car investing. The business is a business, and there's certain laws and principles that apply to business growth. And one of those laws is to leverage, inject capital, scale, and grow that business operation. So, but we have to think, like, the way I think about it, Matt, is when I start any business, I'm a big business who's temporarily trapped in a small business's body, but I'm a real business. Like, I'm a real boy. I'm not like Pinocchio over here. So when I start a real estate investing business, or I start a lending company, or I start an education company, I'm already a $50, $100 million company who's just trapped in a $10,000 company's body for the moment, but I'm scaling and growing towards that endeavor. And there's different thresholds. And I would say there's different points of growth that they need to respect. I'm not coming into it like I'm a $5,000 company and I hope to grow one day to be a big boy and be a $10,000 company. Like, then I don't think you're treating it as a true business.
Yeah. 100%.
So let me ask you, man. So people are in business right now. We can't change yesterday. All we can do is focus on today and tomorrow. What can we do now as business owners to pivot from where we are and maybe start focusing on creating more of a lean business with a scalability factor in mind? What can we do? Let's talk about some of the ideas and concepts. Folks at home, do you want to talk about some of the ideas and concepts? Yes, they do. By the way, real quick, let me address one point, Matt. People are saying, is this market good, or is this market good, or is this residential market good? Every real estate activity in every real estate city has opportunities. The question is, do you possess the skills? You possess the skills, and then do you have an advantage in your marketplace where you can win while everybody else isn't? Like, do you have specific knowledge, relationships, access to information, access to deals? So I think there's merit to every market. And if there's a book out there called Acres of Diamonds, and you can read that book there, and I think it helped touch that piece. So go ahead, why don't you take it over, man? Let's talk about some strategies or some practices that we can start. Somebody says I got squills. I got some squills too, man. Let's talk about some things that people should do now, getting to the core of these problems.
Yeah. So I think as a business owner, one of the first things we need to really do is just challenge any of our pre-existing assumptions. So this is the time to not just assume that the way we did business in the past was the way we have to do business in the future. And so I think what that starts with is like giving yourself a little bit of time to breathe and really map out exactly where you're at as a business and challenge some of those preconceived notions that you may have towards your business. What I think we're seeing right now with a lot of restaurants that used to be dine-in only is a lot of them now are starting to challenge that preconceived notion that they have to be a dine-in only restaurant. We were seeing a lot of them now move to skip the dishes, Uber Eats, things of that nature. And that's just a natural evolution in their business model, in my opinion, based upon the circumstances we find ourselves in. So I think like for myself and my team, what we really did was challenge, we want to continue to do the same level of activity or more, but is there ways that we can be more effective or more efficient? And I think that a lot of businesses found themselves during the fat years falling into bad practices, right? Or not staying as lean as they necessarily could have because the market didn't necessarily dictate that as a necessity. So I think by just like really getting clear on what's actually our true bare minimum needed to continue to operate, right? So do we need 10 locations or can we really do 80% of our business from 3 locations? Things of that nature where we're really starting to dial in the data and really understand exactly what's going on in this market today, I think is absolutely critical. Beyond that, just moving towards what we're talking about, making sure that you have liquidity as a business owner. So for Canadian business owners, not only do we have the 75% wage subsidy, but there's also a $40,000 temporary loan available that you can get through any of the big financial institutions. And that's sponsored by the government. So there's a bunch of conditions in there, but in theory, that'll inject about $40,000 of liquidity into small Canadian businesses, which will hopefully also help them bridge that gap while they kind of transform their business model if necessary. Beyond that, I think, my inner accountant always wants to really just dial in on the numbers and focus on, what expense categories can we target, right? And if you're an individual listening to this, you can do the exact same thing for your personal finances. We know based upon Stats Canada that the average Canadian spends about 30-40% of their income on shelter. They then spend another 20% on transportation. And then I believe another 20% kind of on personal consumables. So right there, that's where the vast majority of Canadian spending is going. So if you can focus on dialing in your housing cost, if you can get that by house hacking, rent hacking, some sort of situational setup where you can reduce your overall spend in that category. If you can reduce 50% of your spending in shelter and you were the average Canadian at 35%, well, all of a sudden now you're saving 17% or you've reduced your expenses by 17%. That's a really powerful way to move the needle. And a small business should do the same, right? Like, let's look on where are our big expense categories and do we necessarily have to be engaging in these expenses? And then beyond that, I know you've had a few guests come on the show over the last few weeks talking about focusing on revenue.
Yeah.
Revenue and cash flow will always fix a lot of your problems as well.
Let's talk about that, folks. Listen, you got to follow the money right now. Just like always, I think what happens is we get distracted in business and we focus on things that are busy, not productive. Like you start your business and the first thing you do is you go create business cards. Nobody cares. Nobody wants your business cards. They want you. So you have to engage in the activity that brings you closest to the money. And this is where trimming the fat is important. When it's a fat season and there's plenty of credit, there's plenty of whatever, people can afford to be busy and look productive. Right now, you can't afford to be busy. You got to just be productive. So you got to trim back the things you like for the things that you need to do. So you want to design a new website because it's cool. Like that is not an important necessity. What's important right now is jump on the phone and make that sale. Right now, it's never been more important to focus on sales and marketing. Whatever your business does, the truth is that every business in the world is a sales and marketing business. That's it. Whatever your widget or service is, that's a secondary piece. You're in sales and marketing. And if you don't understand that, you're not really in business. Well, I sell the best hot dogs. It doesn't matter. Nobody's buying your hot dogs if you don't do sales and marketing. So the first thing I would be doing is I'd be focusing on revenue. First thing I would do, right? And stay there. So if you don't have a dedicated sales team, you are the sales team. If you're the owner of a small business and maybe it's just you, maybe you and one other person or whatever it is, you need to pick up the phone and get to revenue. You can't afford to be taking days off. You can't afford to be, lollygagging and wasting time on things that are interesting and fun and give you personal satisfaction. You need to do the hard work of bringing in revenue. So that comes down to sales. If I'm a restaurant, I'm focusing, how do I sell product now? I have to change my delivery, whatever I need to do, but I need to hop on the phone. See, maybe what you can do is, if you're like a local bakery, maybe what you need to do if people are not coming in is you need to partner with a restaurant that's already very popular on Uber Eats, and you need to start supplying that restaurant with your baked goods at a discount or whatever, or like find opportunities by which you can drive sales. And that might partnering with other people, joint venturing with other like businesses, creating opportunities for yourself so that you're not, I don't think we have time to just, be alone. We need to find collaborations in this kind of time and focus on a collaborative effort that has a win-win scenario to it. So I could think of all kinds of different businesses. If you're a physical print shop, you need to connect with some digital company to see how you can maybe share services or bolster or pivot. If you were printing posters, maybe now you need to print flyers for marketing firms. They can drop them through Canada Post and focus more on the marketing side of things versus on the attractive poster design side of things. So the luxurious things that people engage in, we need to remove those things and focus on the money. If you're a business owner, you need to be on the phone 10 hours a day right now. You need to be calling. One of my mentors, Matt Monero, says, listen, in wartime CEO, you do this, you make money. If you don't pick this up, you do not make money. And right now, revenue will solve your problems. Somebody's saying that people are getting laid off and that's going to become the new norm. The truth is, a lot of companies like Amazon are hiring. Okay, a lot of virtual companies are hiring as well. It's about making the pivot, making the change over to being a virtual operation. In fact, we did a training boot camp this weekend that was 2 full days of how to move your real estate business online, how to become a virtual business, because that's the only way you're going to survive in the next century of business dealing. See, what happens now is the industrial age just collided with the information age, and the people who are hanging on to the old way of thinking and refuse to accept 20th century, the truth is now you don't have a choice. Now it's been shut off for you. So at some point, the world and the economy will give you enough time to jump in and get ahead with the forward thinking movement. And if you decide that you're not going to join it, at some point, it's just going to give you a massive stop and say, okay, your chance is over. Now you're forced to move this way. And I think the reality is we need to think about it maturely and logically. We know we're going towards the information age. We know we're going towards a virtual. We've been moving virtual for such a long time. And now the companies or the individuals that started businesses that refuse to go that route, now you're recognizing that you don't live in that reality anymore. We've been living in the virtual reality. It's time that we need to get on board. So yeah, do I think some companies will be stripped down? Sure, I do. Do I think new modern versions of those companies, of those services and products will emerge? Yes, I do. I really do think that they're going to start emerging in different fashions. So, it's easy to sit back and blame everybody, or it's easy to sit back and make assumptions, but I would rather just prepare for what I need to do. So you're right. Let's talk about cutting expenses, right?
Well, and even before we move on to kind of expenses, I just want to build upon that idea you had of, the industrial age and the information age colliding right now. Absolutely agree with that. And what's really exciting, I think, for us real estate investors is, for whatever reason, real estate's usually one of the slowest industries to adapt to new business models and new strategies. So that actually means that there's going to be a huge gap in opportunity for the real estate investors or the aspiring investors that are actually willing to embrace this new business model versus all the 50 plus crowd that I think are very stuck in their ways and just they want to try and see their golden years out, continue on their current business model for as long as they can.
Well, it just goes to show you don't have a choice. Like, just because you want to engage your golden years as being an old school realtor or whatever, you might not have a choice. The truth is our friends on the American side of things have been moving virtual in the real estate space for a long time, right? Public information has been accessible to everybody, through the Freedom of Information Act in the US. People have been doing wholesaling real estate. People have been doing virtual deals there for a very long time. They've got a lot of technologies driving for dollar apps. They've got a lot of virtual things. Like, there's a lot of investors in the US who run a virtual real estate company. We in Canada just happen to be 10, 15 years behind them all the time. And the fact that we don't have access to information furthers that stagnant mindset. But the truth is, they've already been ahead of us, and we actually need to catch up to them. They're not going to slow down and come to us. So this may lead to some change in legislature. Who knows? This may lead to some changes in things where information becomes more readily accessible, available for Canadian investors. And that's not a bad thing. I know that Toronto Real Estate Board and Zillow had a lawsuit. Was it last year, the year before? And I'm pretty sure that Zillow won against Treb, wasn't it, at the Supreme Court of Canada?
So now we've got more information, we've got more data points to use, and really it's only empowered the general market.
It's going to keep changing. And every antiquated industry that's been run as a monopoly, you know, like for example, the real estate business, like realtors basically own a monopoly in Canada. Okay. Like that's going to change. It's going to change. And as much as we don't want it to change, I'm sure no dynasty or monopoly before us wanted to change either, right? There's comfort in the monopoly. There's comfort in knowing what it is, but there's always going to be a change. And the companies who don't stay up to date and they don't focus on massive customer service and massive value are going to get X'd out. So if Amazon doesn't stay on top, they're not going to be on top. Some other company will come and take their lunch. This is the nature of business though, folks. So when we understand this fact, the question is, how do you position yourself? Number one, to run a lean operation. Focus on the revenue, not on anything else. Nothing else matters. Revenue. Once you have a proven model, then inject capital, hire the absolute best people you can find and pay them top dollar. I'm a firm believer of paying people what they're worth and paying them even more, because when you get the right people on your team, they will grow the operation. They will grow the business. So you as a business owner can focus on scaling, can focus on new things. I'm not looking for the cheapest anything. I think it's time to, like, people mistake sometimes frugality for cheapness, and they're two different things. Like, I won't spend money on myself that doesn't make sense, but I'm not going to cheap out and hire the cheapest possible people that are not qualified to do the work that we need to get done. So there's plenty of great people out there. And I think a lot of online education companies like Cashflow Tribe, for example, is a great online education company that help people develop new skills, join new community, you know, learn about real estate investing in a modernized way so they can do their business virtually. But I think there's going to be more online universities, more online education. In fact, somebody I was talking this weekend is developing an online education component for the Toronto School Board. Maybe the kids are going to start doing a lot more online home-based training. You know, these are things that we're going towards, and I don't think it's fair. Like, if you want to pull back and not accept it, hey, man or gal, like, you're going to be left in the dust in a little while from now. So, you know, I don't think you've got that option anymore. Talk to me about expenses, man. So what kind of logical expenses can people start making right now, or deducting or removing from their bottom line?
Yeah. So if we're looking at like businesses and stuff, what can you potentially be looking at reducing your overhead? I think the first one is, you know, looking at physical locations, right? Especially if you're shuttering them, if you're currently not able to use them in an effective manner, if you're a non-essential business. I think trying to figure out a new platform in order to deliver your goods or services to your audience is absolutely critical. If you're taking a wait and see approach, I think you're going to be waiting for a very long time, and you're eventually going to burn through your liquidity. So I think that actually taking action now is more important than simply waiting. I think that we've got just enough clarity at this point to know that this isn't going to all magically resolve itself by May 1st, let's say. So adapting to at least the short-term reality, I think, is really important. So at the same time, a lot of people naturally assume that you can't get out of something. Like, reach out to your landlord and try and negotiate. Hey, you know what? This physical location was working great for us when we were allowed to be open. Now that we're not allowed to be open, it's not working great. But when we're allowed to be open, we would love to come back and fully utilize the space. Is there some sort of give and take relationship here? Can I defer some of my payments? Can I reduce it slightly? Don't be afraid to negotiate with your service providers, right? At the same time, you know, try and be understanding and empathetic to their perspective as well. But when we're looking at trying to reduce our overall expenses, you know, those fixed costs are pretty significant for a lot of businesses. So if there are ways, or potentially, can you repurpose or multi-purpose it? So maybe sublet space to other businesses, or, you know, literally sublet the entire space to another business. And maybe you look at going virtual. Again, it really depends on what niche we're in, but I'd love to hear, what are your thoughts, Ben, on areas where companies can look at reducing their overall burn?
Yeah, so I definitely agree on the virtual side of things. So like moving your employees out of office and back into home environments. Obviously, there's going to be changes. So like in the news today, we have some stuff. Hans, pull it up. The companies that are up today, the stocks that are up, are companies that are focused on in-home activities, right? So these are the companies that are winning, the companies that are focusing on services and products to help, you know, in-home, either entertainment, business, development, or other areas of our lives here. So what I would do is, I understand the whole real estate thing. People are saying, well, commercial real estate is going to collapse because people don't need office spaces. Okay, fine. I get it. Somebody else will occupy that space, or maybe it will collapse. The truth is nobody truly knows, but at the same time, it's also going to be on sale or discounted, that other investors who have been on the sidelines and maybe haven't purchased commercial property will find a use for it and maybe purchase it again. See, we're so afraid of going virtual that it's like, well, they're all going to be vacant. Yeah, but you never know what new business will emerge out of this. I know somebody who's, putting together an amazing facility right now in the extract space, which never existed a year ago. There was no extract industry a year ago, right? For the medicinal side of things. And in that space, they're going to have a 50,000 square foot facility. See, that whole industry wasn't even here. So new things will emerge in which we still need buildings and commercial buildings. The idea of you sitting in a cubicle might be transported to the idea of you sitting at home in a cubicle.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a lot of fear around commercial space and office space. And again, I understand that perspective, like you're saying, Ben, but it's true. It's not like all of a sudden this building's just an untouchable and we'll never use that space again. In fact, it can be repurposed to a multitude of options, right? And really, it's going to be in repurposing a lot of this commercial space where there's going to be new and innovative businesses and niches crop up that we probably never saw before. Yep. Again, we may be able to predict some of them, but some of them will completely blow our minds based upon the innovation that this kind of time of scarcity is going to force upon people to get creative, to think outside of the box. And that's when the next big Apple or Google or whatever it is actually going to be created, is under this pressure that we're going through.
Let me throw my own thoughts on you and tell me what you think. If you folks at home, tell me if you agree with this logic. But I believe years and years ago, thousands of years ago, we were really focused and predominant on the specialization of labor. If you were a blacksmith, you were a blacksmith. If you were a gold trader, you were a gold trader. If you were a tax merchant, then you were a tax merchant. You had to specialize in one thing or another, and that was your primary focus in life. So you kind of inherited that. As we moved into industrial age and monopolistic opportunities came, we moved to more of a generalized labor force. So you could get a job at, Chrysler on the line, pressing a button with no specific unique skill set or no advanced education in a specific area of life. So we moved into more of that generalized formatting. As a result of the information age, the whole idea of generalized labor is going away because it's being automated. And at some point, we got to recognize that that's just what's going to happen. When enough people are pushing buttons, somebody's asking the question, how do I save money? So I believe we're actually moving back into a specialized labor division. You've got to develop a skill now by which you can provide value in that marketplace. So, and if you want to do it from home, you need a skill to possess by which you can operate from a home facility. So, if you were pressing the button on the line before, well, then you better get, some skills in some kind of environment or something maybe in relation to automotive or otherwise that can't necessarily be automated. So you've got to go back into the skills. And I think that's where it becomes important to find something that you can start mastering today. So, and it's never been easier, which is why education companies are on the rise. It's never been easier to master a skill than it is today. There's so many books, opportunities, and videos, etc. But that's where I think we're going, Matt. I think we're going back into a very unique the specialization of labor. And I think the folks that have been focused on the generalization labor principle, I think they're running out of options and they have to go back to school in a way or develop a skill that they maybe haven't developed. What do you think of this logic? That's how my mind works. That's how I see the world.
Yeah, I certainly think that we're going to continue down the path of specialization and niching or sub-niching in regards to knowledge and skill bases, and completely agree that idea of the general labor force or simple tasks. If your task can be simply put into a standard operating procedure and just put on autopilot, you probably are at a greater risk. And so naturally people think of factory workers or maybe fast food workers when they think about those sort of roles. But it's even true in some of the more white collar or higher wage fields. So for example, this is something that's been happening in accounting and finance for a really long time. Outsourcing the labor portion of the simple parts of an audit. The cash part of an audit section is usually a very simple process and can be really standardized. You can outsource that to India and pay a fraction of the cost of what you would pay for a North American worker. And so we've seen the big four accounting firms moving towards that over time. And now that there's this kind of emergency situation or this unusual event, the volatility, it's just going to force all these companies to double down even faster, to want to innovate, to reduce input costs. And that's where us having that specialized skill set, I think that skill sets, again, that lend towards creativity, right? Towards like really knowledge based, but like not just being able to regurgitate facts or statistics, but actually being able to create compound complex thoughts or products. That's where you're going to really have a more resilient position.
Yeah, and I think like your human brain is so much more capable than any robot, but we need to give it enough high level problems where it can create real value. So coming back to it, like as a real estate investor, the whole creative finance thing is amazing to me because a lot of people don't understand this space because they've never bothered to learn it. But creative financing is a process by which you literally sit down strategically and creatively and come up with solutions to unique problems that normally are out of the box, unconventional, and they don't typically have an obvious solution. That kind of unique skill set or thought process is way beyond where most investors or people are accustomed to. And just for you folks, I've got a stat over here. Hans, pull it up here. According to Remax, there's no crash coming in Canada. This is what they're saying. The Canadian real estate market held. They're asking, will COVID-19 burst Canada's real estate market? Okay, that was a question posed. According to Remax, the novel coronavirus impact on the global economy has only been moderate so far, although the stock market has nosedived. Up until this point, housing markets across Canada haven't yet shown signs following the same trajectory as the stock market. They made that announcement April the 7th. So I don't think Canada's going to zero. There's way too many factors in the real estate market, folks, for it to actually drop as much as people think it will. But as a real estate investor, like for me, this is still the safest investment vehicle possible because of the intrinsic value component. When you buy real estate, you're buying raw material, raw land. You're buying the material that was used to create that brick. You're buying jobs when you buy real estate, unlike the stock market. So even though they may be closely related in some ways, they're vastly different in a lot of other ways because it breeds confidence. So Matt, just touch on that if you don't mind real quick in relation to the stock market or to the real estate and housing market. Do you see a massive issue coming or do you see a rebound, and should people get maybe educated and excited versus completely fearful?
Yeah, I think this is definitely the time to focus on investing in your number one asset. And I'm pretty sure both Ben and myself would agree that it's really your mind, right? It's your mindset. It's your ability to, work under pressure and just understand that you're in control of a lot more things than you often realize. And so once you take ownership of that situation and really start empowering yourself with the right information, surrounding yourself with the right people, all of a sudden you realize that you're capable of so much more than you probably ever imagined beforehand. And in fact, that again, it's just a matter of getting around the right people that are going to give you permission to succeed, because so many people in our lives are afraid to push you forward, right? Because the moment they push you forward, what if you fall? And they really want to protect you. And so their risk aversion naturally results in, less than ideal support for us on our journey and growth as, say, a real estate investor. So I really think this is the time to level up your knowledge, level up your network, get the right tools ready so that when there are opportunities, and there absolutely are opportunities. And it's important to understand too, people make money in every real estate market with every strategy. It's just you can't always make money in that market with that strategy. But there are people making money in that market, and there are people making money with that strategy. It's just when we try and force one strategy on one market where it doesn't fit, that people are going to find themselves in a bad position when it comes to investing. So absolutely, we're not going to zero in Canada. There's a lot of fundamental reasons why, and you can look at things like immigration. You can look at even just the bountiful natural resources we have, or where we land usually in the best countries to live, right? All those are factors. And, it can be easy when we're going through this volatility with COVID to feel like we exist in a vacuum and COVID is the only thing to look at. And that's the only thing that's going to impact the market. But in fact, there's a lot of other dynamic forces as well.
And I would agree with that sentiment in the form of, we're like, oh my God, Canada's dropping. It's all real estate dropping. If that's the case, the whole world is dropping by the same equal proportion. So yeah, we're 20% less confident than we were a year ago, but so is everybody else. So in theory, we're all at the same level of relative confidence to where we were, because it's not like people are going to leave Canada and fly over and now they're all going to live in Mexico. There's no area of the world that's deemed to be like, oh, this is now the hot spot. Let's all migrate over there. So until there's a migration issue happening, the truth is that we're in the same situation we really were 3 weeks ago. Are there bad things happening? Sure. Are there people getting sick? Yes, there are. I get it. I totally understand. I'm not here to mitigate the downside issues. What I'm here to do is have a logical conversation about what you can do right now practically in the economy of one, economy. I want you to focus on your independent thinking, and your actions right now will either set you up out of this thing so that you never have to worry about another COVID financially, or you will. See, I think it's totally up to you right now to make a decision on controlling your future. And if you don't know where to start, I just told you, specialization of labor. If you want to be an investor, you need to specialize. You need to get around other investors that know what they're doing. You need to join masterminds. You need to join the groups of people that are actively engaged in practicing real estate investing strategies. Like, I'm talking real practitioners. This isn't the time for baseless mentors and coaches that have never done it. This is the time to join practitioners like Matt. If you want to learn wholesaling, talk to Matt. He knows this business. You want to know investing, talk to Matt, because he's actively engaged in these activities. So now is the time to focus on you, because when you come out of this, you're either going to come as a more developed version of yourself, better prepared and equipped to take on the world. But first, you need to understand yourself and understand the world. So many folks, unfortunately, they don't understand what they don't understand. If you think that you're coming out of this with the same intentions and the same approach that you did going into it, the truth is you're probably going to have a rude awakening, because you might go back to that job, folks, and it may not be there. Somebody said in the comments, like, people are getting laid off now. They might come back to realize they actually don't have a job because their employers are making drastic changes. They may very well do that. And I'm sure some employers will. And some employers are looking at this as an opportunity where, just like the individual person has delayed modernizing their approach to life, so have many businesses. And those business owners are having a rude awakening, just like the individual is. So yeah, some people might come out and realize, hey, I don't have a job. So what you need to do is start now. Take the time now that we're investing into other things that don't produce anything, and focus on yourself. And if you're a business owner struggling in this environment, hey, you're a business owner. You're going to struggle. That's part of the game. If you don't want to be a business owner, some people who are business owners probably need to bow out of the game. They need to go and get a job after this thing is over and gain a skill and go find meaningful employment somewhere else, because they just don't have what it takes. And the truth is that it's not that you can't, it's that you've just chosen or choose not to. A lot of people are injecting their emotions in business when they should be injecting capital, and they should be injecting other things other than their emotions or their opinions, So I'm a big proponent of, don't try to predict the outcome. Don't try to predict the world, but just prepare for it. So right now, when COVID happens, my business is still growing and thriving. In fact, I'm adding more people. I'm adding more activities. I'm adding more businesses under our corporate umbrella. I'm adding more to this time because, frankly, I've been in a position of waiting, where I'm waiting for opportunities to get in. And I think, like you, Matt, and other investors, the savvy investors, folks, they're getting ready to jump in if they're not already in the deal, right? Not everybody's running away. Just the general populace and the general media is running away, and that comes down to the same old theory that, the news and people that are broke, they talk about people, right? They talk about people and the news. And people say, well, the news is all negative because it's designed for broke people. This is the truth about the news. It's designed for the audience, and it's all going to talk about the negative. Middle-class people are going to talk about the stuff they have, their cars, their houses, the liabilities, the things. And wealthy people are going to talk about ideas, growth, strategies, abundance, mindset. So gauge your group by your conversation. Don't tell me you're middle class or rich. Follow the conversation. Jot down the conversations you have for 30 days. You'll know very well which category you belong to. Yeah,
that's powerful stuff.
So, and then one other point I want to make here is that, the market is a very, everybody follows everybody. So one day the news is positive and the bears come out. Another day the news is negative and the bulls come. Folks, you got to understand, the news's job is to sell news, right? So if it's a great day in the news, hey, a new stimulus was announced, everybody's running. Tomorrow, oh, the stimulus didn't work, everybody's running back down. You have to recognize this behavior. It's going to keep going up and down and up and down. The news is not a reflection of the reality. The news is not a reflection of the reality, because 2 months ago it was COVID's the end of the world. And now this month it's like the theme of the month is, well, this is a big hoax. Okay. Probably it's not one or the other. There's probably some middle ground there. There's probably some truth in everything. There's probably also a lot of exaggeration in everything. So you have got to form your own opinion here and really, you have to discount so much of what you hear. Like, we're not taking it with a grain of salt anymore. We're taking it at face value, and I think it's a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
What's your theory on that, Matt? What's your suggestion?
Yeah, there's so much information, misinformation, and just general noise that I think it's really difficult to separate between noise and signal at this point in regards to especially mainstream media, in my opinion. So I think people are certainly, I don't want to, promote like stick your head in the sand, but it's more like be mildly aware of the general sentiment and what's going on, but like, again, really focus on what you can control. And we can't necessarily control what China decides to release for information or what our own government decides to release for information. So much more better to focus on your business, your household, your real estate portfolio, whatever's important and close to you. This is the time to double down on that.
I'll give you a suggestion. I would say in relation to the news in the world, have a macroeconomic event mindset. So like I have a general awareness of what's going on, but definitely not a microeconomic event mindset. When it comes to your life, your income, your business, you need to have a microeconomic focus. So go macro for the news, know the general outlining of what's going on, go microeconomic for you. Most people don't even know what their balance sheet or their bank account statement is. You don't know the micro details of your life. And I think that's a big mistake. A lot of people are backwards. They have a microeconomic view of the world. I know every death toll and blah, 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 blah. But when it comes down to, okay, tell me about your life, your business, I don't really know how much income I have. I don't track my budget. I don't track what I do. I lost, you don't really know what you're doing, but you know what everybody else is doing. This is why the economy of one is so important. Become a microeconomist of you, and anybody can do that. And I think that's the importance. If you're going to become an economist and you want to be the person with opinions, have opinions about your own business, I think it's just so much more valuable use of your time. Hey, Hans, pull up the stock charts real quick, just to give you guys some indication here before we tie it up. So certain companies like Works, the healthcare software company, are actually up. So by the way, 434% in one day, which is just insane to me, just for some anecdotal evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy? And so they got access to 2 million coronavirus testing kits. So folks, it's just interesting to me, like how companies will rally and drop so quickly. So you trying to time this market, I want to help you understand you're not going to time the stocks. All you can do is buy and then pray. That's how this kind of works, right? So the people, even the sophisticated traders, can't predict the 400% gap. Also, in other news, Nogeco Group is up 36%. Obviously, people can't go to casinos, so virtual online gaming has gone up 36% just from this one company alone. So if you were gambling online, you probably should have gambled and just bought the stock instead of went to the online casino and lost your money there. In fact, if that's your premise, you're better off to gamble on the stocks and just hold them instead of gambling online, because this stock is going up. It's one of those things that the lender and the borrower, the company will make money. The individual person who's gambling likely will not. It's not designed for you to win. So this is a principle that if you just think about this logically, follow the money. The money is in, this, not gambling or distraction. Also, marijuana company Afria is up 8% in relation to retail stores now reopening. So for those of you that need your medicinal product, you can get back out there. So this is an interesting company, right? It was at 30 cents a couple years ago, rallied up to $24, came back to $2. Now, like these massive movements, folks, again, they don't necessarily correlate to the housing market. So if you're looking at this saying, oh my God, the stock market dropped 30%, that doesn't mean the housing market will. They are two different things. But this is more for anecdotal evidence. So folks, here's what we're doing. Matt, let's talk about it. If you want help in this area, if you're a small business owner, if you're an investor, you want to learn how to take your business virtually. You want to learn how to create amazing culture with your team, and to the point where they can work from home and you're not worried about their productivity. That comes down to culture, by the way. That's where it comes from. You want to learn how to actually build your business. We've got some amazing friends of ours like Evan Stewart, who's an amazing business owner. We've got Chris Rude, #1 wholesaler in Grant Cardone, 10X Platinum sponsor. We're hosting an event. It's this Saturday and Sunday, all right? And we're putting it together. It's called the Tribal Summit. Hans will drop it here. The link will be in the description. It's going to be a powerful 2-day event. If you think of 10X GrowthCon or something like huge, it's like that. We're going to have a phenomenal thing. We'll have a couple thousand people here with us. I'm very excited for this. And you know what? Best of all, Matt and I are hosting this, putting this together. It'll be dope, and it's going to be absolutely free.
Mm-hmm.
All you need to do is grab and reserve your spot, and you'll be able to take advantage of the entire weekend. So if you need a productive outlet this weekend, you need something productive, you need to focus on your business, your mindset, your personal development, your spirit, or your fitness. If you need to help in those 4 areas, you need to be on this weekend. And we're working really hard to prepare something amazing for you guys. So Matt, anything you want to add to this piece?
Yeah, just if you find yourself awash in drama these days, and it's really easy to do that, like this weekend's what you're looking for. This is going to be the little respite from all the drama in the mainstream media and just all the BS and misinformation. We're just going to be focused on what's under our control. How can we level up as individuals and business owners and real estate investors? I really encourage like anyone that's watching my YouTube channel right now, like Ben mentioned, it's literally completely free. So you've got nothing to lose. Just invest a little bit of your time with us this weekend. And I'm really looking forward to getting to really squash a lot of the fear that's out there and get dialed in on the data.
We're going to have a couple thousand people on this call, so it's going to be awesome. And we're going to have some amazing guests. We're going to have some cool stuff that we're launching. So we'd love to have you guys there. And listen, I kept the comedy light today because I wanted to focus on these serious matters. So I hope if you guys like this different tonality, let me know in the comments. And it was such a pleasure having a great dialogue with Matt here as usual on our Monday session. So Matt, thank you so much for joining me on the show. And as we wrap up today, I hope you guys have a great day. Stay focused, stay humble. And you guys know I have a rap song for Matt today, and this is his jam. So I'm going to wrap this as we get out of here. Stay blessed, folks, and head over to humble.ceo if you want more information on this or to grab your free copy. And we're going to have a link in the description to join us for next Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be a phenomenal event, and it's going to be focused on Canadian online business owners, real estate investing, personal development, mindset, health, and we've got a whole bunch of other stuff that we're covering. So it's going to be, dude, it's going to be probably 4 or 5 hours each day, and it's absolutely free. Come hang out with us. Hans, let's kick it out of here. Matt, thank you, my brother. Stay focused.
Thanks, Ben.
Hey, what's all the
Working at your job every day of the week. Promoted 2 times, but now your future looks bleak. You're saving every dollar, making plans for retiring, but now you're losing hope and no one is hiring. McKeever and Ben Humble is coming to the rescue. Diversify your income and stop spending like the rest do. Time to build some skills and get some solid mentorship. We fighting in these waters like U.S. naval battleships. McKeever making money. Are you making money? Build a business now, or y'all be looking funny. McKeever making money. You making money? Build a business now, or y'all be looking funny. Your mind is a pandemic, got the virus, it's a scarcity, so switch it to abundance. It's your choice, just believe with me. Don't have to be scared, poverty is not your destiny. Just have a little faith, stay with me. Yeah, it's Humble B. Yeah, it's Humble B. Here we go. I'm teaching from experience, educating more than sesame. And yeah, I'm from the street, so I think independently. I'm not that big bird, I'm not yellow, you can count on me. But I'm dropping big words with syllables like 1, 2, 3. McKeever making money. You making money? Build a business now, or y'all be looking funny. McKeever making money. Are you making money? Build a business now, or y'all be looking funny. It's time to make some money. Government just can't fix it though. It's time to take control and money pedal to the floor. It's time to make some money. Government just can't fix you though. It's time to take control and money pedal to the floor. McKeever making money. What? You making money? Build a business now, or y'all be looking funny. McKeever making money. Yeah, you making money? Build a business now, or y'all be looking funny. And 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Your boy Humble, yeah, he done it again. So come back tomorrow and bring your friends. Goodbye for now. This is not the end.